Roll call.
Chair Frederickson.
Here.
Vice Chair Shores.
Here.
Commissioner DeVries.
Here.
Commissioner Goss.
Here.
Commissioner Keith.
Here.
Commissioner Kress.
Here.
Commissioner McCoy.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Everybody please stand for Pledge of Allegiance. And Mrs. Charmaine, would you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. Approval of minutes. Regular meeting minutes. Consideration of regular meeting minutes on the November 12th, 2019 for review and approval.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion. I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Item 2, consideration of public comments. Those wishing to address the Planning and Zoning Commission need not request permission in advance. Action taken as a result of public comments will be limited to directing staff to study the matter or rescheduling the matter for consideration and decision at a later time pursuant to ARS 38-431. See anybody in the public sector with comments? I see none at this time. Thank you. Old business, conditional use permit KCUP 19-0004. Richard?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. This is conditional use permit case CUP 19-004. The subject is an expansion of the truck parking area for Flying J at 3300 East Andy Devine Avenue. The property owner is Kingman Plaza LLC. Ben Laparn is the owner, and the applicant is Pilot Travel Centers. Brad Alsup is the applicant. And the request is for the expansion and modification of a conditional use permit to allow truck parking area onto a portion of the former Kmart property located at the existing Flying J truck stop at 3300 East Andy Devine. The Flying J property is about 7.5 acres in size. The Kmart property, also known as Kingman Plaza, is about 5 acres. The Kingman General Plan land designation is highway service commercial for the Flying J property and regional commercial for Kingman Plaza. Flying J is an existing truck stop and fueling facility. Includes a truck service facility that was constructed in 2018 and a restaurant. There's truck parking to the rear. Kingman Plaza is primarily vacant at this time, but there is a TI for tenant improvement for Ashley Furniture in a portion of the building. Both properties are Zone C3, commercial service business. This is the zoning map of the location. You see both properties are Zone C3, C3 across on Andy Devine. East side is, or sorry, the west side is a mixture of hotels, restaurants, gas stations. The east side is in the Flying J truck stop, truck wash to the south. Kingman Plaza, where the Ashley Furniture store is going in, and Bash is north of that. The area was annexed into the city in 1971 in Zone C3. There was a conditional use permit approved for a Husky truck terminal in 1975 on this site. That CUP was approved in another CUP was approved in 1988 for Flying J. The previous truck stop was torn down and the new one was constructed. In 2017, a CUP modification was approved to allow the construction of a truck service facility on the property. And this facility eliminated about 20 parking spaces for trucks on the property. The area is generally flat with a slight slope down to the northwest. It's not in a floodplain. There are existing water and sewer lines that front the site. The sewer is located in a PUE and egress easement that lies alongside Andy Devine. And there's a water line located in a 16-foot wide PUE on the property line between Flying J and Kingman Plaza. Both properties are accessible from 2 driveways on East Andy Devine. The right-of-way is 165 feet wide. It gets wider as you go to the north. It's fully improved and it's maintained by ADOT. This is the site, subject property, showing the location of both the Mojave Plaza, as well as, Kingman Plaza, as well as the Flying J to the south. We posted the site with the zoning notice on October 25th, published a notice in the paper on the 27th of October, send out surrounding property notices with 150 feet. We did receive one inquiry from a property owner in the area, but no comments from the public were received. So again, this is a request for a CUP to allow expansion of the truck parking area associated with Flying J onto a portion of the former Kmart property. It also proposes to change the flow of truck traffic entering and exiting the site and relocating the truck's scale. Trucks are proposed to enter at the existing southern driveway for the shopping center and circulate through the site before fueling. Then they will then exit the site at the signalized intersection at Armour and East Andy Divine. The reverse traffic flow is intended to ensure that the truck stacking takes place on Flying J property and not on the adjacent roadways as it does now. They are proposing directional signs and arrows to be added for proper traffic flow. The truck parking area that is proposed to be added on the former Kmart site will include 21 new spaces. As I mentioned, about 20 were eliminated from the old facility when the truck facility was built. This shows the submitted site plan. I've just identified Kmart building as well as Flying J, where the truck parking area is. This is a more detailed view of where the improvements will take place. You can see where the truck parking area will be on that southern end of the old Kmart Center. There'll be a 10-foot wide landscape area between the truck parking area and the existing, what will be left of the existing parking area. The 45-foot wide PUE and I&E portion will be left open for traffic. The proposed truck entrance would be that driveway.
Rich, just 1 second, please. A fast question. What is PUE and I?
I'm sorry, public utility easement and ingress egress easement.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that. The proposed truck entrance is, as I said, at that southern driveway, and all trucks are proposed to exit at the lighted Armour. So the applicable regulations, the Kingman General Plan, as I mentioned before, has the designations of highway service commercial and regional commercial on the site, which is compatible with C3. So those regulations will be met. Under the bulk regulations, mainly it's about the parking situation. The proposed truck parking area will expand into part of the existing parking lot that serves the existing Kingman Plaza. There's actually two parcels, total of 222 parking spaces. As I mentioned, about 61 vehicle spaces will be eliminated. Plus, there is a future human being that's going to be located near the Taco Bell. I'll show a map here in a second. Near the Taco Bell's location, that will eliminate about 7 spaces, leaving 154 spaces on the site. Ashley Furniture will require about 58 spaces based upon its tenant area. The remainder of the parking lot will need to serve the roughly 65,000 square feet of building floor area that would be left to be filled by future tenants. They have proposed a parking plan that indicates a restriped 60-degree type spaces with one-way 18-foot wide driving aisles. That is in accordance with our off-street parking requirements. They're also showing additional 48 parking spaces that would be added to the rear of the building, and this would be primarily for employees. If this plan is developed, it would result in a net loss of 4 parking spaces for the shopping center.
Rich, I'm sorry, another question. Can you go back? Is there room for more than 48 parking spaces at the back of the building?
Well, this aerial here, you could see this is where the parking space will be added. So I believe that's the most they can concentrate back there with the angled parking.
Okay, go back again. So maybe further on in your presentation, you recommend them adding more spots.
What we're recommending in the end is that not losing more than 4 spaces.
So the property owner is going to be reconfiguring the parking spaces
He
for
would
the
be
center.
responsible for that, yes. And we're recommending that not more than 4 spaces be lost for the overall center.
And so I didn't do all the math. Does that add up?
It does. It'd be 218 versus
All right.
222 now.
All right, thank you.
So this is kind of shows the layout a little bit here. It's a little hard to read, but you can see where the truck parking area is proposed over here. This would be the eliminated spaces. This would be the reconfigured parking spaces with the 60-degree angled parking with the one-way aisles. This is where the future human being will be located. This portion will not change. As I mentioned, there's actually 2 parcels that's owned by Mr. LaParne. It's this piece here. This is where the actual furniture is going, and then this portion over here is still vacant at this time. The city engineer commented that he still has concerns over what happens when the entire building reopens, given the amount of truck parking and its proximity to the building. As I mentioned, as a condition of approval, staff is recommending that requiring the existing Kingman Plaza parking lot to be reconfigured and additional spaces be added to the rear of the building so that there's not less than 218 spaces on the site, which would be a loss of 4. And then all parking areas would have to be designed in accordance with our parking regulations. Under performance, the revised site plan will maintain that access between the Kingman Plaza and the southern driveway. We had raised some concerns in the previous staff report about that. That would be resolved. And the city engineer commented that no fencing or curbs should be allowed within that access easement to continue to allow traffic through there because it is for access. Traffic patterns, as I mentioned, it would be changing. They did provide us a revised TIA, traffic impact analysis. ADOT commented that trucks could make a left currently at Armour. They expressed concerns over possible conflicts with trucks trying to turn left into the shopping center driveway, a driver's turning left from Armour onto Andy Devine or State Route 66. And they've indicated their intent to restrict the access to a right-in, right-out at the existing driveway for the shopping center. So this kind of shows you where that right-in, right-out, there would be some type of pork chop in the center here. This would have to be widened to allow the right-in, right-out configuration. And then this would continue to be exit only for trucks, although cars will still be able to enter the site at Armour.
Can you step back just a second there? The other entrance to the east, I guess that is for cars into the Kingman Plaza
This
Center.
one here? Yeah.
And then this is that one's dedicated for truck traffic only. There won't be a conflict, there's going to be a barrier of some sort between the two, or no?
Cars will not be prevented from using any of these driveways, but trucks will be directed, as I understand it, to be using this driveway to enter this site and
it
not
will
use
be
this
widened,
one.
the proposal.
Right.
And we'll go back to fencing for a second. You do not want any fencing. I'm going to ask Mr. McCoy's question a different way. Does that mean there will be no barriers in between where semis are allowed to park? So they're leased space, if you will, and the parking for the rest of the plaza. There'll be no barriers.
There won't be any barrier within this 45, which is this driveway right here. This portion will be left open for vehicle traffic. The idea is that there would not be any trucks using this area here, but they would come in this way and park in this region here. There will be landscaping as well as fencing here, but it will not extend all the way across the PUE because it is supposed to be a ingress egress easement as well.
What type of fencing did you?
I believe they showed that it was going to be a chain link fence.
And so the idea is for trucks to not park in the rest of the parking lot.
Right.
But in reality, there's nothing stopping them, right?
There was some
There
discu-
isn't today, I recognize that.
Right, and there was some discussion about could there be would we allow some type of barrier or additional barrier there that would squeeze it down so just cars could get through. I think in the end it was decided that it was best left open because of that. That's how it's platted as a full ingress egress easement.
So cars will be able to enter into that shopping center from the truck entrance also.
They still would be able to, my understanding, yes.
So the businesses that are gonna go in there, Ashley Furniture, they usually are closed by 9 o'clock at night, really about right. I'm sorry. Like Ashley Furniture, they're gonna close right around 9 o'clock at the latest, correct? So in the Human Being, they're closed at what time? What time do they close down now? So realistically, I think what you're gonna see is trucks using it through the nighttime hours when the business hours are closed. But is there gonna be some sort of enforcement to have them out of there at a certain time in the morning? Or are they gonna allow them to stay? Because they're gonna use it. They do now.
Yeah. It would be, you know, I guess it'd be up to the property owner to find a way to prevent that from happening.
Who is the property owner?
It's Ben Leparn.
And is
With-
that the Flying J? Is it, or are they?
No, he owns where the Ashley Furniture is, as well as the old Kmart Center, as well as the small center where the medical marijuana location is.
Mhm.
And Flying J is owned by Pilot, which is a separate property.
Oh, okay.
And the city is good with a chain link fence across that section of the parking lot.
That is their proposal, but you could certainly recommend a different type of fence.
That was going to be my concern, is that the aesthetics on that. But we just spent hours in meetings trying to make Kingman better. Hmm? The what now?
There.
Oh, I just said we just spent hours, trying to make Kingman, we're just focused on trying to make Kingman look better. And I think that the chain link fence is something to, I don't know to address, because that's going to be ugly.
Is there a 3 or 4 foot curb barrier
Yeah, that's,
on the backside there between the truck parking and the parking for the business?
It's my understanding there's the curb barrier here, and then there'll be a 10-foot wide landscaped area. I don't know the exact height of the curb. I'll let the applicant and his engineer address that.
yeah. Because I've seen them with commercial, like, similar setups and developments, and they usually have like a concrete pony wall, and it looks good, and it works well, but it looks good. So I was just thinking that that's something to take in consideration.
Or maybe some greenery, maybe like rocks, some shrubs or something to distinguish it rather than a chain link fence. I think a chain link fence is going to be tacky.
They just don't want to take any more parking spaces, probably, by making it too pretty.
We
Is
have
that all you
10.
got, Richard?
I got more. I didn't
Okay.
know if there's any
Okay.
questions, but
All
Sorry.
right.
okay, I think I was past this point. And as we mentioned, the landscaping and fencing, again, 10-foot wide landscape buffer is proposed, and the chain link fence, but Commission could certainly recommend a masonry fence of some sort. And the last section I have is nuisance. Again, with expanding the truck use to the north, there may be an increase in noise from idling engines and odors and pollution from exhaust fumes, so that's something to consider. And under the required conditions for the CUP, there are some additional minimum requirements that would have to be met. The city engineer commented on the need for there to be a review of the, oh, it is here, 6-inch high curb that'll be added across the existing paved parking lot and how it affects drainage flows. And the city building official commented on the need for to coordinate fire hydrant relocation with the fire department. However, I understand the latest plan is that the fire hydrant will not be moved.
Where exactly is the fire hydrant? Is it going to be positioned out in the middle of a parking lot?
Yeah, that's
I think
right.
the fire hydrant they're talking about is this one here. See if I have a map that shows it. I think it's over in this area right here. So I don't believe it's going to be directly in the parking lot. So it'll be on the edge of it.
Go back to the photograph, Richard, please. Next
Aerial
one.
photograph?
Yeah, please. Okay, where the proposed truck entrance going into the new truckway going in, is there any possibility of closing that off and just then having another driveway besides the main one there that we see just north of it coming into the center?
No, I don't think so because there's a limited number of driveways that ADOT's going to allow. I don't think they're going to allow any more driveways in this area. And again, it's because there is a existing ingress-egress easement that's recorded at this location. We really can't cut that area off. It's supposed to remain open.
Then can there be, from my experience, a narrow lane where only cars can be making a turn into the center?
We did have some discussion about that, about some barriers or something. Again, I probably would need to sit down with our engineering department who were the ones who were raising this concern and see if what they would be comfortable with. I realize that there's definitely a concern with not allowing more trucks through there, so.
And did you say, coming into that parking lot, it's only going to be a one-way for the trucks? So how are they going to exit out of there?
The way they come
They
in
would
now?
exit here at the light.
At the light?
the light.
So they would just be channeled back through?
A big circle.
Right,
Okay.
it's supposed to come in this way, go through the fuel island, and then exit this direction, rather than the way they come in now.
Do we have anybody from ADOT here that's going to talk on the flow of this coming in and off of 40?
I did invite them, they didn't, they're not here.
Okay.
So finally, the staff recommendation is we can support approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission provided that certain conditions below are included. And one is at the time of development, the existing parking lot that we talked about for the shopping center shall be reconfigured and additional spaces added to the rear of the existing building so that the entire parking lot has no less than 218 parking spaces, and everything would have to be designed and improved in accordance with our parking ordinance. At the time of development, a landscape buffer and fencing shall be provided between the truck parking areas and the remainder of the parcel, except for the area of the 45-foot wide ingress-egress easement, which must be left open and unimpeded for access and drainage purposes. 3, prior to any development, a drainage analysis shall be submitted to the city for review, which examines the drainage impacts of the truck parking area, including additional curbing. And 4, the applicant shall design the driveway to the truck parking area in accordance with any ADOT requirements. And with that, I'll try to answer any additional questions you have. And the applicant and his engineer are here as well.
I have one we can delete the fence and expand the landscaping buffer as opposed to a fence?
Or
Well,
don't they have 10 feet? Isn't there 10 feet allotted for the landscaping?
the landscaping
Buffer.
buffer is 10 feet, right?
Right,
So
but
it's
we're
too
talking
big.
about dividing that parking lot with a chain link fence, or they're
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about it. So as opposed to a chain link fence dividing it, a landscape 3 or 4 foot wide area with just a curb, that way it's not unsightly, it's landscaped, and it is a barrier, so.
And
Yeah.
trees grow.
Yeah. Maybe some shrubs, big rocks
Yeah,
or something
mesquite
decorative.
trees or
yeah.
something. Who knows? Thank you.
Okay.
And I have a question, and forgive me for my ignorance on this, but is lighting addressed, or is lighting addressed in this, or how does that work?
I don't recall whether there was any lighting proposed. I imagine there would have to be, but I'll let the
Let me talk
engineer
about that.
address that.
Okay. I just thought with trucks, and there's so much crime, a lot of crime happens at truck stops all the time, so I was just wondering about the lighting, that's all.
Any further questions, Richard?
No.
All right, Richard,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Richard.
Thank you.
Would the applicant like to? How you doing?
Just fine. Brad Olson from Pilot Flying J. How are you guys tonight?
Pretty
Okay.
good.
Good.
Okay. Well, Richard kind of gave you a big overview of the project. I'll try to address any questions that come up, but generally speaking, obviously when we built the truck repair facility, because it is a very busy Flying J truck stop, it was a good location for us to have truck repair. We lost some truck parking, and we also know that there has been a long-term traffic issue, shall we say. So the purpose of this proposal is to, one, replace some of the parking we lost, two, to try to get the parking for trucks regulated in a designated area, as opposed to just them parking wherever they want to on the Kingman Plaza property. And also, by reversing the flow of traffic through our site, we're going to pull all those trucks off of the roadway, get them out of the intersections much more quickly, and have all the stacking on our property, which is going to be a benefit to everybody in the area. So that's the genesis of this project that we're looking to. We've been working with Mr. Leparn back and forth to figure out how much property we were going to take, what impacts there were going to be to his property, and obviously it's a fine line, because if we go too much further in, then it makes it so that there's not enough parking on his property, but if we don't go far enough, then we just create a bigger mess on our site. So that's the reason for the project. So I'm going to try to go through some of the questions. First off, there will be an 8-inch high curb. It's a heavy-duty curb and gutter system we put behind truck parking. The trucks back into the parking spaces, as you guys have seen frequently. That is our standard curbing for that type of use. It allows the trucks to set their axles. It doesn't snap off and break. So you'll have an 8-inch high heavy-duty curb and gutter system.
Excuse me, is that the kind of curbing that you have in place now at the back of your property?
I would have to look at that.
Because that's where they back in now, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
It should be similar. Pilot and Flying J merged in 2010. This was a Flying J that Pilot inherited in that merger. So I can't say exactly what is there, but I know in anything new we build, we put this type of curbing, and it is certainly sufficient. It is actually exceeds any DOT standards in the country for a heavy-duty curb. But we do that because we know what it takes for those trucks to back into and set their axles. There is a 10-foot landscaping buffer with the a proposed chain link fence behind. Again, trucks back in, and when they back in, their step at the back of the trailer is only a couple of feet off the ground. Anything that's higher than about 2 feet is going to get destroyed, no matter what you put there. You can put concrete, you can put shrubs, you can put trees. So that's why we were proposing kind of a stoned landscaping area. We certainly want it to look good, but we don't want to have a bunch of dead plants out there because they keep getting run over. The chain link fence would provide a barrier both for people and for any trash that might blow, so that we have an easier time to go out and collect it. Between the two properties now, there is no barrier at all. Obviously, people are going and parking in the Kingman Plaza area, and it's kind of free access. So we would be able to channelize that a little bit better, define it better, and the fence would help provide some protection. Our original proposal showed the fencing, the landscape buffer, and the curb line all the way down to basically through the utility easement. And working with engineering staff, that's not allowed, so that's why we've pulled it back. Our preference would be that there not be any vehicular access going across, but the access easements are in place across all of the properties now, so in theory they can do it now. You're hopefully relying on the presence of the trucks to dissuade, and the presence of another car driveway immediately adjacent to dissuade cars from going through.
So with that entrance, can you make it so trucks cannot turn in to the business parking lot?
Not with a 45-foot easement. We talked about, let's see, is this going to work? Yeah. We talked about potentially putting a very large bollard right here to make it so that they couldn't get around, but I can't put that in the utility easement either, so we're a little bit hamstrung. I'm certainly open to ideas, but that was the only idea that really, as we were talking to staff, had any real traction, because it would provide, make it much more difficult for trucks. I will put ample signage up. I will put pavement markings, anything and everything I can to stop it.
I know from experience, I'm 33-year truck driver. It was awesome career for me, but there will drivers that will make that turn.
Yes.
And they don't care. Mm-hmm. They're going to do it no matter what. So if something is put there to make it impossible and they get hung up, then so be it. But I think something needs to be done, because as a driver, they want to go look for someplace dark. They want to go someplace that's not lit up, not going to be, bothering them, not with reefers running. Mm-hmm. And that's just the nature of the beast. And I'm sure you guys know that too. Yes. And my second concern is, as knowing how drivers are, typically a driver pulling into a truck stop wants to get fuel first, then they go clean up. Now you're proposing that they come in, park or whatever, get their fuel as they're, and I'm sure there's probably no other way around to get their fuel as they're leaving. How are you going to combat them doing that? And then,
Well, honestly, this is a facility we inherited. It's ours now, so
I know
we're dealing with it. But typically, I would, any facility that we build now is going to have this type of flow that we're proposing. So you're going to go in, you're going to circulate through the site, you're going to fuel, and then you'll be able to loop back around to the parking. And it is set up so that the trucks can come in, they can circulate around through the behind the shop, they can come forward and fuel. We've got our pull forward line, so they can pull forward, they can run in and pay if they need to, what have you. And then they can just circle back around.
There's enough room. They can stay in the parking lot.
There is. It's
my concern. They're going to have to go back out in the street again.
No, they won't have to go back on the street. We've got it set up. We had to play with the scale placement a little bit to make it work, but yes, there is ample room for them to make that maneuver, and that would be the goal. And again, we're keeping all of that on the site to try to eliminate congestion and impacts to the roadway. And I in talking with staff and with ADOT throughout this process, there's not been any hesitation that this is going to make the situation much better. It's been more of, how do we do it so that things like landscaping and fencing and drainage and what have you are properly dealt with. And I will say this, if we don't move forward with this project, the situation that exists now is just going to continue.
And it's
based
pretty
on,
bad. Yeah.
Based on your comments, and it is what it is. We're trying to make it better. And we have some constraints, so we're trying to work through that.
My second question is, when you set the curbs up for the rear of the trailer, do you set them up to allow, so there isn't really overhang from the trailers into the planters?
No, we put between the back of the curb, or really the front of the curb, and typically any fence, there's 15 feet.
Okay.
So that it gives them
enough,
usually it's
5
no
feet.
more than about 12.
Yeah.
So it's usually pretty good.
Do you have any other material that you're recommending besides a chain link fence?
No, ma'am. That is our standard fencing material that we put in. It's fairly easy to maintain. And if a driver does get into it, it's very easy to fix, as opposed to block, where it becomes a lot more costly and just more cumbersome to get anything done. And with a chain link fence, you're not going to worry about graffiti and all of the other things that could happen. So that would be our recommendation and request, is that we be allowed to do the chain link fence. I certainly understand your concern about aesthetics. But again, if we go too far, any further really into...
What about wrought iron? Put it up on like a curb and do wrought iron. It has the same, openings as a chain link fence. You can't do graffiti on it.
You can't do the graffiti, but it will not catch trash. If trash is blowing.
So that's the point of the chain link, is to catch trash, more or less?
Yes, and it's a physical barrier. You don't want people just walking into the truck parking area, right, in an undefined area. But it also it catches any trash that might be blowing.
Just like that fence across from Smith's right there.
Yeah. I can see that.
Right?
So those are, I guess those are some of the questions. You also asked about circulation or traffic flow. How do I go?
Did I read somewhere in here that the guys did a study and there's only seven trucks per hour turning left into the site from westbound State Route 66? 7 per hour? I
From
think it's
westbound.
more.
Heading
that's-
heading west.
That's
turning
on
west.
Okay, all right, so that's not
Yeah.
right. We got more than that coming in.
Correct. So speaking, most of the traffic, both car and truck, is coming to and from the interstate, right? But there is some that's coming up from the airport,
Yep.
specifically truck, that we're concerned about. So the discussion is for I'm going to call it the Kmart driveway, to be our entrance. And then generally for trucks to exit at the signal. I actually spoke with Todd Steinberg from DOT right before this meeting, because I was curious if he had come up with any final comments about this, because I knew that they were still kind of reviewing. Because we had requested that the Kmart driveway be full access, full entrance, left and right turns in, so that we maintained a better flow through the site. DOT had some concerns about that. They are going to request again that it be right in, right out, and then their request is that any trucks who are going to make a left in make it at the signal. But it's a much smaller number than it currently comes in at the signal, so it should certainly decrease any conflicts. And then car traffic would still function just as it does now.
Do you know what time of year they did this study? Do you have any idea?
Pete, do you remember when you guys did the study?
The original traffic count study was August.
Okay. The reason I say that is we have what we call snowbird season. So in the spring and in the fall, that traffic about doubles, as you have everybody coming through town with their motorhomes as they go on to their other destinations. So has that been something that we need to be concerned about as well?
Well, again, your car and RV traffic patterns are not going to change any.
Okay.
The cars and RVs
Are still going to come in at the same location as they are now.
I'm going the wrong way. Go. Well, it does, okay. Yes, ma'am. To answer your question, I was hoping it showed the whole thing. We've got RV and passenger vehicle viewing lanes to the right of where.
So that doesn't change.
That does not change at all. This really is addressing truck traffic and parking, and nothing else on site will be changed as far as that.
So you're saying the trucks coming from the airport, when they coming back up, heading south or west, whatever you want to call it, to the freeway, their only way into the center is at the light?
At the light, yes, which is where they currently come. But again, it's a much smaller number.
Yeah.
And because you have a signal controlling it, it's going to be a little bit cleaner. Because right now you've got people trying to make a left, people trying to make a right, which in theory it's a free flow right. But with the trucks, at busy times for trucks, I get one guy at every lane and one or two guys right here at these lanes, and it's shut down.
Yep.
As far as traffic. But by reversing the flow, I've corrected that problem. And we have reversed the flow of traffic at many locations across the country throughout the years, and it's an immediate improvement. Usually it makes the problems go away completely, just depending on the amount of space you got, but it's an immediate improvement.
Now, will you put signs in the trucking spots, no driving, pulling forward, only back in only?
We do not put those in, but it's kind of self-regulating. You know, as a driver, you know, you pull in, you're kind of stuck.
Yeah.
So we do not have anything that regulates that. No, sir. But I rarely, in all of our facilities, I rarely see anybody pull through, yes, but not pulled in.
Yeah, I don't get it, but
Occasionally somebody does it.
yeah,
They'll do it once or twice, and then we'll do it again.
yeah.
One other commission member mentioned it before, security lighting, because things do happen and
Well,
Parking lots.
I guess I want to address that in a couple of ways. We are not proposing any additional lighting for this. If that's something that's the commission's pleasure, we can certainly look into that. You are very close to the building and the canopy, so there is some ambient light. One thing I would say is, I'm going the wrong way every time. Here we go. So if I put lights back here, and I've got a 65, 70-foot truck, those
Gonna
lights
hit it.
really aren't going to do a whole lot of good unless they're
No.
very tall. So, maybe something along the edge.
It'd have to be out front.
That's the only way. And you're getting enough light from the canopy and from the truck shop building at that point that it's really going to be a negligible impact. The other thing, from a crime standpoint, I realize our facilities like ours have get a bad rap. There's usually not as many problems as people think there are. And we try to work very closely with local law enforcement, free access to our facilities, meaning we're not going to stop, we're not going to discourage officers from coming, driving through our lot, visiting, to use the restroom or what have you, as they patrol, because we want that presence. We want to be a good corporate citizen. Our managers and staff are told if they see anything questionable, they're supposed to let law enforcement know. They do not handle it themselves because we don't want to create unsafe situations between people who are untrained, right? But we do try to deal with that in a very proactive manner.
The truck fueling lettering up there to the left of that, I'm assuming that's a planter right now?
Yes, sir. There's a 7 or 8 foot wide it's just an island. There's nothing in it. But
Yeah.
an island there now. I think it's actually concrete.
Yeah.
And I think it's primarily used for grade transition. Because there is a little bit of a grade transition in that area, which is what made the new scale placement so difficult.
And you also addressed, like the draining, say water issues, any kind of drainage coming from that curb that goes around. Have you done a study or anything with that?
We haven't looked at a full study yet, we recognize that was the engineer, prepared construction drawing for this. All right, my name is Peter Profit. I'm the engineer for the project here, and so your question was about the drainage, and we recognize that was a comment. When we turn this in, we haven't done a full drainage study yet, but we will do that as part of the permitting process. So we're anticipating we're not increasing the flows because it's pavement now, and we're going to be flowing in the same direction. So we anticipate being able to handle any mitigation.
Yeah, because I know on that one side right there, when it does rain, it puddles. There's like a lot of
Where's that?
puddling. Right there where you're planning on putting your parking lot. I don't know how far it goes back on the property, but it pools right there.
On the pavement? In the
Yeah,
Kmart
it
parking
pools,
lot?
yeah, it pools right there.
Okay.
So I think that needs to be, explored.
Well, and that's something that we can certainly look at. And I think part of the original comment, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong, is because we were showing the curb extending all the way through the public utility easement and then turning back to the right, it potentially was going to block water flow, but without the curbing in the public utility easement, water's going to be able to hit that curb and then head down.
Oh.
Yeah, into the current, south into the current drainage pattern. And all told, I'm going to say we're probably decreasing the amount of impervious by a very small amount. There is a little bit of impervious between the two properties that's going to go away, but we're creating the landscape buffer, so your amount of impervious should be decreasing slightly. And also,
Actually, both of those drives going into the plaza, both of them flood.
Flood.
Both of them flood.
into the
The
Kingman
old
Plaza or the
Kmart
Flying?
the
The
Kmart.
two that go into the Kmart
Okay.
Plaza, both of those areas totally
We
flood
flood.
when we get our monsoons.
Okay,
So, if you haven't been out there with any amount of rain,
okay.
you'd be quite shocked.
I understand. Well, that's certainly something we can look at for the one that we would be dealing with. Peter can address that and at least examine it. The one on the Kmart, the rest of the Kingman Plaza property, we're not doing anything there. We
Right,
we
but
will
for you
handle the
guys-
striping to make sure it's done
Okay.
as part of this, even though it's on his property. We will make sure the striping gets done. And the other question was asked about the fire hydrant. It is at the end of this existing island now. That is a kind of a divider island, a grade separation island between the two properties, this being the property line right where my mouse is. We're going to put some bollards around it to protect it, the hydrant, but we'll put probably 2-foot bollard, 4 2-foot bollards around it, and that'll
Probably a smart idea.
yes. So it will be protected. It just, as we looked at it, we thought we were going to have to relocate it, but it's out of the line of where trucks are going to be pulling out of this parking space. So we felt good about that.
One more question. I'm assuming that you have a long-term lease with the plaza
Yes, sir.
on
It
this
will be
parking
a
area?
long-term lease. Yes, sir.
And how, long-term meaning,
I don't remember the exact details, but it'll be at least 20 years and probably 3 or 4 5-year options after that.
Okay.
So it's long-term.
I kind of think about this back when you came before us in 2017. I'm thinking you guys had to know there was going to be a parking problem when you took out 20, 25 spaces to put in your service. And I understand that with the future I-11, everybody's gearing up for, continuous flow and hopefully pulling in, but
Well, I was not involved in that project, and I'll tell you, even though it is a great facility and we're glad to have the repair facility, I think if we could do it over again, we probably wouldn't because of the impacts to a very busy facility. Unfortunately, I'm going to tell you that wasn't properly considered, but we are trying to rectify it now.
Didn't you lose like 26 spaces when you?
I
put,
think
that
the staff
repair?
report showed 21, or 20 rather, and we're going back in with 17. It was going to be 21, but because of the public utility easement, we can't park there, so it's going to be 17. So it's getting pretty close, with a much better flow, which will make the parking situation
'cause I remember
immensely better.
us going over that and saying that it's going to create a problem with the trucks.
any further questions of the applicant? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Sure.
I want to open this up to the general public. Please state your name.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Wes Maroney, and I'm got a couple of questions. If you block off the entrance going in from Armour, where are the RVs and cars going to, are they going to be able to make a proper right-hand turn to go into the car area?
The RV and
Okay. Yeah.
the automobile and RV traffic patterns, flow, and access will not change at all.
Okay. All right. The other thing I was concerned about, it said ADOT right in, right out. Okay, if they go right out, where are they going to go down and make U-turns? Are you gonna, the only other place would be at Airway. So you're going to have a whole lot of cars backed up trying to make a U-turn on Airway to go back down Andy Devine.
Are you talking coming out of the Kmart driveway?
Yeah.
And taking a right down towards Airway?
Mm-hmm.
But he just said that they're going to be restricting that flow, that they cannot turn right coming up.
They'll only
Well,
be
somebody is gonna.
they'll
make
only
a
be
right
turning
turn.
out from the lock signal.
From
Yeah.
the signal.
So that kind of concerns me, putting extra traffic onto Airway.
I don't think that's the intention. I think
Okay, but
If I may, so at the signal, the signal traffic will stay at exactly as it is.
Okay.
So it will be a full access signal, left, right, straight, what have you. So,
Can we go back to the one where it shows the Kmart?
The aerial,
that one?
No,
there.
that one.
Yeah, okay. Somebody right now makes a left turn, right?
Yeah, that truck
When
right
I
now?
used to go to
At the signal.
Kmart before
At
it
the
got
signal.
shut
At the
down.
signal.
That's the signal where the
That's-
trucks.
No,
turn.
I see a black arrow at the Kmart intersection, and where that
Oh, no,
semi-truck,
that's only right turn in.
So where you see the black arrow, that is the right in, right out for trucks only.
okay,
Where you see the exit only for trucks with
Yeah.
the truck with the intersection, that is the signalized intersection. The flow of traffic, as far as what you're allowed to do, left, right, straight, does not change at all there.
okay,
It's just saying that's where the trucks would be exiting.
All right.
So for cars and RVs, nothing is gonna change. So they would come to the signal, and they would make a left at the signal just as they currently do. Or they would come down to, not Burger King, it's the one before Burger King,
McDonald's,
McDonald's, and you can make a left out there,
okay.
just as they.
The other thing I was thinking about is the water flowing out of the parking lot. You know how we have in each neighborhood now, we're putting a pool or
The
an area for
drainage-
the drain?
drainage easements.
Couldn't, and retention pond, couldn't it, where, right now where it says possible right in and stuff, couldn't they put a retention pool there?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Well,
an
the
easement.
other place is, it's a park when it's not raining. And when it starts raining, the park goes
But what
away
he's
for.
saying is ADOT owns that. ADOT is in
ADOT,
charge of that.
that's ADOT.
And that's a major roadway. It's a
Right.
4-lane roadway, so they're not gonna have something
Right.
like that
Okay,
off of a roadway. It
And-
would create a safety issue
all right.
for several reasons.
And then you being a truck driver and me being a cop for all those years, they will go into that old Kmart parking lot and they will
Yes.
park there.
Yep.
Again, they're already doing it.
Yeah, I
Trying
know.
to make it better. The
Yeah.
options are, let's work together.
Well, no, I'm all for your thing because you bring tax dollars into the city and it needs it, you're working with an old plot, map and that's just the way it goes when semis were 30-foot long and not 50-footers.
Speak into
so-
the microphone.
Yes, and so they're going to come in and come around, make a J, fuel up, and then make another J to come back in and park.
And that's not uncommon.
No, and I would suggest that you, like you said, put that fence up, and you can put slats in it or something and catch the trash. People do not use their insides of the cars, and they let it go. Other than that, those were my concerns, and
Thank you, Wes.
I'm happy that it looks pretty well thought out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wes.
I see no other people out in the audience, so I'll close it off and open it up for discussion.
Already discussed.
Short of the chain link fence, which is the only thing that I'm really not pleased with, I like the proposal, and I would support it, but I don't like the idea of a chain link fence.
I like the idea better now. Going into it, I didn't think I was really going to be on board. I think personally, we need to work out something when the truck's on that entrance coming in that they cannot put some kind of barrier, big concrete, whatever we need, so trucks cannot turn in. Make the radius small enough so they can't make that turn into the parking lot. Do everything we can.
Don't you think they just go down to the next
That's
turn?
Well, they can do that, but I know what's going to happen. I know I'm a driver. I get it. I think we need to do everything we can to prevent going in, and if they're going to go in the other way, then that's up to the property owner to address that issue, and then that's with our local law enforcement. I think we have something on the books about overnight parking on retail properties. So that's my comment.
Well, I have a concern with the drainage because I know that area right there, it does pool, and I'm talking they're large pools. So I would want to see that the drainage is addressed. And I have a problem with that chain link fence. I think we could come up with something, since it's so out in the open. I can understand if it was behind your property, the railroad tracks, everything right there. I get that. But this here, it's right in the middle and in front of businesses. And I just think we could do something a little bit more creative with aesthetics rather than a chain link fence.
Commissioners, if I might, a couple of items. I've been involved with this process since the beginning. I know you're having a little heartache about the chain link fence, but having now cleaned up that area in front twice with trash, to actually have that chain link fence as a stopping point, and it keeps it on their property and they maintain it, it would be a godsend, because it took 15 or 16 of us almost 6 hours to clean up that entire area, starting from Taco Bell all the way up from the trash that leaves. And it's not so much that an item they can control. What they can't control is what the people throw out of their vehicles there. And so to stop it at their parking area really is advantageous. You know, that'd be the tough thing there. The second thing is their original proposal was to come all the way through that PUE and set up the fence line and everything, Gary, which would have stopped that traffic thing. But it's our issue in relationship to what's in that PUE. And so that's why it had to stop there. So that Ballard discussion has kind of been there from the beginning, because it's a toughie. If they were allowed to have come through and crossed that PUE, this problem wouldn't exist. And so, just to know how we've been working through it.
That's fine and dandy, but some kind of barrier,
Yeah,
concrete, pole, concrete, whatever, just to make that turning radius damn near impossible
Yeah.
for the truck driver to think about going in there.
That's been the discussion.
I know
yeah.
Pilot's going to do everything they can to prevent that, but the wayward drivers that are out there nowadays is something different than when I started.
What about
I just
the
wanted to relate the
directional
trash
sign?
issue, because I know that's a tough one, but having been there twice now to clean it, I really understand. If we stop it on their property, then, it really becomes
That's a good
their
point.
issues. So it's a tough one.
But there are alternatives to chain link. You could
Yeah.
do like a picket, or you could do a wrought iron, or chain link is
I understand, but it has to be something that's small enough to actually catch the trash.
true. And if you put pickets close enough together, they'll catch it.
But it won't hold up.
Well,
I understand where you're coming from.
It's, hey,
Catch
I
22.
don't want a chain link fence around my yard either, because it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it's very effective. Go back. No, you're sorry. So a chain link fence no, it's not the prettiest, but it's effective. And it's easy to maintain. The other thing, if I may go back to the
But we don't want the place to look like it's just a truck stop. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it already is.
It is.
Right, it is. I mean, so if we're going to make changes, let's make changes aesthetically better. And let's explore. I'm sure there's other alternatives that would have the same effect.
You got block wall, you got wrought iron, you got chain link.
but you can
Or-
do
or
those,
wood fencing.
I've seen a lot of them, they have like, they're short block walls, they're like half block. Here's my concern. We talk about Smiths. Yeah, it catches it, and it looks terrible. You got all this trash blowing up high as can be,
On this chain
and
link
nobody,
fence.
and people don't maintain it. I'm just saying, then you got Ashley Furniture and a beautiful coffee shop that wants to go in there. We're finally, apparently, going to have a nice plaza, which is going to be a blessing, and you're going to have a chain link fence catching all this trash. And yeah, you say it's going to be out there, somebody going to be out there all day picking it up, but Smith's, across from Smith, it is disgusting.
Yeah.
All you see is trash bags and garbage
chain link
and
fence.
McDonald's blown up against the fence, and it's just piled high. And then you get, once in a while, a group gets out there and cleans it up. So I think there is an alternative, and I appreciate, because I've seen it, I appreciate what you guys are doing. But the chain link fence, I can just see it looking not good. That's all I'm gonna say.
Maybe wrought iron fence that is closer together.
You're
Change
still
it.
gonna stack up trash.
Well, it is.
It doesn't look the
You're
same
still
though.
gonna have to send somebody out there daily.
It is, but it's going to look aesthetically better than a chain link fence.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
How many employees do you have at this time at that location?
Between Pilot and Denny's, I'm going to say between Flying J and Denny's, I'm going to say it's between 75 and 100, but I don't know the number off the top of my head.
Okay.
And you've also got the truck care facility, so we've got to be in the 100 range.
Okay. So when you have these facilities, and obviously this Flying J is not your only one,
Mm-hmm.
so when you have these facilities, do you have a designated groundskeeper for these areas?
We have facility service team members who are responsible for general maintenance and upkeep of the facility. So a lot of the keeping the fuel islands clean, walking around or driving around on their golf cart and picking up the trash, emptying the trash cans we have around the parking spaces. And then the managers are tasked also with making sure the grounds are kept as clean as possible. So if you're telling me it's not being done properly, then I will promptly report that to the operations hierarchy that should be doing that.
What I'm trying to get is a bigger picture of how the operations run, so that as a community, we know that there's actually people that is their designated job to make sure the grounds around the Flying J stays as clean as
Trash
possible.
free.
Because it's a truck stop, it's going to happen.
Yes, ma'am.
But to keep it as clean as possible, I understand the need for the chain link fence. I don't think it needs to be silver. We could do it black or something like that, but I think it needs to it needs to be there. I hate to say it, but there's not going to be any way around it. That's number one. Number two, I am really concerned about after hours parking, because I have been down through there at
In
night.
the Kingman Plaza property?
Yes, and I do, if I recall, a truck actually backed into what is going to be the Ashley Furniture, the old Kmart pop-out, and somebody took the whole wall out up above. So those are concerns that I have, because it is not a well-lit parking lot, and they like to go over in that section because they can sleep and it's dark, and I get it. So I want to know, do you have security that's going to enforce that? Or how does your security work?
If they leave our property and go over onto the Kmart, as we call it, property, I have no jurisdiction.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
not my property. And I also would not ask our staff to go and
Correct.
address them, because I don't want to create a dangerous situation for anyone. So, one thing I would say is there's clearly a shortage of truck parking in the area. Once a customer leaves my property, I have no control, nor does the city or DOT have any control when they're off of your roadways, right? So my hands are a little bit tied as far as that goes, but because of the regulations on how far, and you know them well, the number of hours you can drive, when they have to come off the road, they have to come off the road. And you can't make a move, because now you're taking liability for any accidents they have. It's a problem.
Well, under the national, they have all gone electronic, correct? Their logs are now all
Yeah, but
electronic.
you can still, a guy could,
Correct.
push it to 5 minutes before he's got to be off, and he's still on the freeway. He should have been parking half hour back down the road. It is in human nature. Do we have the smartest people thinking all the time? No, we don't. But that's in any profession, anything that goes on, unfortunately.
It is, and it's you know it well. If the wheels aren't turning, those guys aren't making money. So those wheels are going to be turning for as long as they can. If I may go back to the chain link fence and then the access between the two properties, the chain link fence, again, if it's not cleaned up, it doesn't matter what kind of fence is there.
Correct.
If it's not far enough away from the parking, it doesn't matter what kind of fence is there. It's going to get messed up, or it's going to get backed into and destroyed. Happy to put a black fence, or there's green. We can put the same colored slats into it so that it becomes
More solid.
Yeah, more solid, more opaque, if you will, so that people you can't see through it, and it provides more of a continuous visual barrier. My concerns about a block fence are as I've said, you deal with
Yep.
graffiti, you deal with,
Yep.
if it gets hit, it's not call the fence company, get them out there today to fix it. It may take a while. Even with wrought iron, you're dealing with something very similar. Wooden fences, the picket fences, wooden or vinyl, either one. It's a much more easily painted surface. So those are the concerns. I mean, we've settled in all of our operations of nearly 900 facilities with chain link for a reason, because it's an effective tool. So I guess we'll wait to your further questions or discussion on that.
I think with Lori's point, and I'm sitting here thinking myself with a blacktop background, a black chain link fence
I would acquiesce and
would blend in
I could live with
if
That
it's,
That's exactly what I
Black
wanted
on
to-
black, it kind of
Yep.
goes away. So we can easily do that. That's not a problem. And for the access, the public utility easement and keeping trucks out, there's two issues. There's the utility portion, not wanting anything that obstructs working on the utilities that are in the area. That was a big concern of the engineering department. The other concern is cross-access. As I sit here, I would say that most of us don't want there to be cross-access through this area because you're mixing vehicle types. Again, staff has their to weigh in on that. If we could get past the access portion, I think I could do things, maybe put a series of removable bollards across so that if you need to work on utilities, you can pull the pin out, lift it up, and you can drive through with no problem. So it provides more of a barrier. It's not a gate or anything like that that's quote-unquote permanently installed, but it provides some way to say, hey, you don't need to come through here. It does prevent access for everybody. But again, I think in this situation, that's probably what we want. And I could put that either, let me see, go back or forward. Where are we? I think ideally you would put it right across here to keep them from even trying to go down there. But if it was your pleasure, we could put it back here. I could put a gate there, the same black material. There's things we could do if it meets the staff's requirements, and I understand that we would have to maybe modify an easement, but I'm willing to work on things like that. But
right.
we've got to have a little bit of.
Well, I think personally, knowing from my experience, I don't think in a truck, the driver is going to take his focus off now. He's not having to worry about a four-wheeler. When they enter any trucking facility, you're normally not paying attention when you're worrying about a truck. And I think just potential safety-wise, if there is something, and if staff was okay with it, like you're saying, block it off, it's removable, just the possibility of keeping, and we don't want some person in a car, it's already a zoo as it is, going in with your fuel island for the cars and motorhomes and McDonald's and everything. It's already confusing as it is, and just to try to, I think, to eliminate that possibility, eliminate the driver thinking, oh, I can make this left turn going in here, and.
So I'm willing, if we can work something out with the staff and with the city officials, we can do, I think, a row of those removable bollards. They're usually about 4 to 6 inches. It would take a lot of them to stop a truck, but it's something visual, maybe put some
I
reflective
don't think
paint.
you need to stop a truck. I think you just need to visually tell them that this is
No,
not
that's what I'm
okay.
saying. It's going to take several of them
Yep.
because one, he's going to make that turn and not even see it. But if there's a row of them, he's like, oh wait, there's something there. We'll put reflective
Believe me, if
paint
it's
in there.
impossible, they're going to try it.
I want to thank you for putting up with us, and
No,
I mean,
Hey,
really,
I'm the
we're
one
all
asking
gonna
you
come
for
in
something,
with it.
so it's
But I appreciate your honesty. I appreciate you, not trying to snowball into something that isn't there. You've been direct with us, and I appreciate that. And I don't know what the next step is as far as maybe coming back to the table with a couple of, just like I said, the color of the fence may make a difference. I don't know if that's something that's going to stop you from moving forward today. I guess that's my next question.
That would be our recommendation.
I assume you could put a condition that the fence be
I would
black
like-
with black slats,
Yep.
and you can make that.
That would be
And
our
the
recommendation
drainage,
to
I
go forward or not.
And again, the drainage is already on the staff's recommendations for a condition, and we will address that. Again, I think it's going to be, as far as the flow of water, it's going to be probably a negligible change, but we can certainly look into the other concerns you've raised.
Thank you.
Just one more thing, because human nature as it is, you guys are gonna clean the trash off your side of the fence. Who's gonna clean the trash off the other side of the fence?
Ashley Furniture.
Well, that would be Mr. Leparn and his tenants.
So in other words, it's not gonna be done.
I can only say whose responsibility it would be.
Good call.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All righty, any,
Go ahead.
wanna make a motion?
I'm going
or-
to go ahead and make a motion that we go ahead and let them move forward with that. It sounds like that everybody's coming in together and working on it.
Do you want to put in the fencing color? You want to have that?
I think it needs to be open-ended a little bit on the fencing, that decision of a color of that fence can be decided at a later date, or if the privacy slats need to be put in, and the drainage needs to be addressed at a later date in your, obviously, your blockage of the one. And I think that needs to be temporary blockage, because I think once the flow starts, you could probably remove it and people get used to doing it, you know, and I don't know if it has to be a permanent thing or not, but those are my only,
So your motion is to include staff recommendations and what you just,
yes.
I would second that.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Aye.
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 Thank you. Item number 4, announcements by commission members. Limited to announcements, availability, or attendance at conferences and seminars, requests for agenda items for future meetings, and requests for reports from staff. No discussion on any of these items. I want to make one sad announcement tonight. I just learned before we start that Mrs. Lori DeVries, this is your last meeting. I'm sorry to see you leave us, and I wish you all the best in the future. And Mrs. Vicki Kress, I know it's been a short while back again, but I'm sorry to hear you and see you leaving us. But I thank you for your time, and thank you for coming back and helping us out.
Thanks for letting me serve with you guys. Appreciate it.
And anybody like to make an motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion.
I got a motion, and I got a second. All in favor? Aye.
Bye.